Hello, everybody. It's Gary Gomes here. I'm the former president of the Council of Vedic Astrology, um, Doctor of Education, MBA, and sociology major. When I was an undergrad, sociology and journalism major for a while. And also, I am Reiki Master, and I'll be talking with you this week, as always, about Vedic astrology, which I've been doing for about a little bit over 30 years. And very proud of the contributions I've made to spreading it in the United States. And I'm very proud of what I'm going to learn about it and feel blessed and humbled that I am allowed to study this subject. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen. Oh, by the way, this is being recorded for Greater New Bedford Cable News. I've been doing this show for, I think, roughly about 2 years now. And I will be doing more individual broadcasts, more short broadcasts, and also more collaborations with people, with other astrologers and with other individuals that you might find interesting. There is something happening in Western astrology this week, which I want to bring your attention to, and that is we are in what's called a Sirius shower moment. So essentially, there's a lot of activity around the star Sirius. This is not a Vedic astrology principle, although I'm sure Vedic astrologers knew about Sirius. But basically, this is supposed to be an auspicious event in Western astrology. So, and actually, it does coincide roughly with certain things that are happening in Western astrology. Let me get the chart up, or in Vedic astrology, excuse me. I'm going to put a now chart up on the screen, and I'll make it for New Bedford. And by the way, at the beginning of the slide, that cat you saw me with was the late Mini-Me, who is a really wonderful, very special cat. Very smart, very gifted little kitty, very arrogant, but just a super nice cat. He's been gone for a few years now, but we always keep his picture alive. The major thing that I think is most important that's happening right now, and it's a little bit akin to the Sirius shower, is a very simple movement in Vedic astrology, and that is in Indian astrology or in Vedic astrology, there is a transition that happens roughly once every 30 years, and that is that Saturn goes into Capricorn. This is kind of it's an extremely important transit because Saturn is one of the slow-moving planets in Indian astrology. I use a system of Indian astrology which does not employ the outer planets. I know a great many of my colleagues in Vedic astrology do employ Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I have nothing against using them. Pluto, by the way, is in Capricorn right now, so that would explain from a Western perspective why there seems to be so much disruption or unhappiness, especially in American society, and also around the world. There seems to be an era of change around the world. But I think one of the problems that I have as a Vedic astrologer is that Pluto is supposed to be connected with the underground and hidden activity. So whenever you have a Pluto transit, he conjures up images to me of secret societies um, or conspiracies. And while I think there is something to be said that the world is largely run for the benefit of a very small group of people, and ancillary benefits accrue to the rest of us. I don't believe it's quite so secret as some people believe. I don't believe it's hidden at all. We have a lot of folks, a fairly significant amount of people and corporations who essentially manipulate data to further their interests. This isn't a new phenomenon. It really isn't hidden at all. It's kind of fascinating to the extent to which it's not hidden. So even looking at it from a commercial culture, I'm not even talking about so you'll have like competing interests around the world, but they'll be competing for essentially, with the decline of communism, there are essentially no competing economic systems in the world to counter capitalism. So what happens when you get to systems like that is there's more of a consolidation of power within a very select group of individuals. And I'm not anti-capitalism either. I'm not in favor of just a few people calling the shots, whether or not it's as a secret conspiracy, which I don't believe in, or whether or not it's a conscious decision to just focus on making money. I'm not naive. I know that's the way the world has always worked, but it seems to me there should be at least some consideration for the preservation of a larger segment of humanity. And it's been something I've noticed from a very early age. I'm not saying I'm this wonderful seer. It's just, like I said, it's just pretty obvious. So essentially what's happened when that Saturn goes back into Capricorn, it will shake up existing institutions. As a matter of fact, that started when K2 moved into Capricorn around 5 years ago. And so that'll shake up existing structures or existing institutions. It won't stay shaken. As a matter of fact, if you look right now at what's happening around the world politically, Saturn's retrograde. So this started to be a more obvious retrenchment of power. And so a lot of the progressive ideas which had gained some currency are being fought pretty aggressively. And I actually honestly I don't accept everything that comes from either side of the political spectrum as being good for people. Some of the stuff from both sides is good for the people. Some of the stuff from both sides is really about consolidation of power. And so I'm just saying that as a marker, just so you know my bias. Yeah, I think it was good for the population overall, and who am I to judge? I think it was good for the population overall. there'll be a point at which certain structures will break, but they'll be replaced by other structures. So right now, with Saturn going through Capricorn, that's what's happening right now. We're getting breaks in structures, but with Saturn retrograde, it's going to be delayed for about 6 months. And I also think when Jupiter goes back into Capricorn, you'll see increasing signs of discontent, which will start around, oh gosh, mid-August and continue through actually around, it'll start around September and go all the way through December. Now, one positive thing though to say right now, so again, Jupiter's retrograde, this is a good moment. It is really a good time for unconventional theories or really innovative theories to poke their heads through. Because when Jupiter's retrograde, Jupiter supports unconventional ideas or restructuring or philosophical restructuring. And that's especially true in Aquarius, which is essentially a sign connected with idiosyncratic thinking. It's true in Indian astrology as well, but idiosyncratic thinking and outcasts, basically. So you'll see more outcasts starting to get some kind of recognition. So I don't expect things to calm down for about another 15 years, especially in the United States. And I also think there's some reason for optimism because, number one, Jupiter in this sign usually creates a lot of technological innovation, a lot of labor-saving devices, and also a lot of unique and very interesting ways of restructuring society. The other thing that shows up, which I'm more focused on right now, is Saturn's been opposing Mars. Now, Mars, we spoke about debilitation last week, and that was the theme of the show. But I like to talk this week about the entire idea of aspects and what they do. So the learning concept for this week is connected with aspects and what exactly aspects do in a chart. So a planetary aspect is really when a planet casts its glance upon another planet. So Jupiter is slowing down or is slower, Saturn is slower, so it's casting more of an aspect. What makes this interesting from the chart is Saturn's aspecting Venus and Saturn's aspecting Mars. Now, Mars just broke away from the exact opposition with Saturn. So it's at 19 degrees, 41 minutes now. Saturn's at 18 degrees, 3 minutes now. So those are no longer locked together. There's a position in Indian astrology called the Sambandha, which essentially means locked together or they're embraced. And if Mars breaks away from Saturn's embrace, it'll lift the feeling that everything has to be perfect, that everything has to go according to flow. It'll open up room for compromise in many parts of life. People over the past few days have probably felt a little bit freer, a little bit less bogged down than they did last week. And that was mainly because of that Saturn-Mars aspect being exact. And it was kind of a choking feeling. My energy levels were way down because it hits two important planets in my chart. But a lot of people's energy levels seem to be way down. And also, what happens when that Saturn-Mars aspect hits is work gets delayed, or it gets slow, or it gets sleepy. And so people feel more tired than normal. So this is something that you have to It's a feeling in the air which is slowly shifting. Mars is in the Navamsa chart, is in Sagittarius, it's in the same sign with Jupiter, so there'll be more energy coming through right now. Also, Venus can, with this combination, can bring unexpected romantic involvements because, and really from like obscure places, because it's in the same sign. It's in the same sign with Ketu in the Navamsa chart, which is a chart which is connected with relationships. So you'll see actually unusual alliances forming, some romantic, some business-wise, and some are unexpected. So people will feel like they met their true love or they understand who their true love is. But there'll still be a delay really for about another 2 weeks before that really manifests, excuse me. Also, Venus is going to catch up with Mars in about 6 days. So Venus and Mars will be like right on top of each other. So what that'll do is that'll increase romantic feelings or feelings of passion for people over the next week. Venus is also aspecting Saturn. According to some astrologers, Venus aspects the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th houses away. This is kind of an obscure concept that one of my teachers discussed way back around in the 1990s. And I don't use this very often, but I have found it to work pretty much because Venus is one of the most powerful planets. It doesn't make sense that it shouldn't have special aspects like Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn do. But it's a controversial topic, but I think it actually does. So Venus casts a more focused spectrum. So it aspects Jupiter, so it'll give hidden feelings. And as it pushes in 2 weeks, within about 2 weeks, both Mars and Venus will pass into Leo, which is a sign connected with triumph and prosperity and rulership. So right now, it's in a nakshatra called Pushya, which is ruled by Saturn, so it's a slow-moving activity. Both Venus is in Pushyami, and Mars is in Ashlesha Nakshatra. So Ashlesha Nakshatra is kind of an interesting place in the chart. So we were talking about Nakshatras. Nakshatras are the lunar mansions which are behind the chart, behind the 12 signs. And Ashlesha has this kind of a mixed reputation in astrology. So on the one hand, it's considered very clever. On the other hand, it's considered rather opportunistic. And when I say opportunistic, I mean that essentially it will hang around with somebody to its advantage. And if something happens with the other individual, it will switch and move over to another individual, which can help it out more. And that's true to a certain extent. There are certain parts of Ashlesha which are, but it's a very pragmatic nakshatra. So Mars, the energy of Mars is very pragmatic right now. It's looking for possibilities for itself, which will enable it to enrich itself, which will enable it to grow. It's not really a stab in the back kind of a situation, but if something doesn't look promising, Ashlesha, which is ruled by a snake or by the Nagas, Nagas, will essentially reconsider and it'll move on to something which is a little bit more promising. So people with Ashlesha Nakshatra, it doesn't mean they're not trustworthy, but they'll assess the situation and they'll change sides based upon which situation either number one makes the most sense or number two will advantage them the best. And sometimes you'll see Ashlesha people or people with plants in Ashlesha are very singularly focused. They'll be very, very focused on home or relationship or career and or money, or even spirituality. They'll be very, very focused on the area of life that Ashlesha touches on in their chart. And they won't hesitate to cut ties if it means that they'll come closer to achieving their goals. So it's not ruthlessness. Again, it's not ruthlessness. It's not a stab in the back. It's pragmatic. Venus is in Pushya, which is essentially it's considered one of the better nakshatras. Is considered to be very honorable, very loyal. But Venus is going to move into Ashlesha within about 3 to 4 days, and they'll be with Mars. So that would give what I would call a lot of opportunistic love affairs. And it's in some ways it's sort of like the Venus Ketu conjunction. Now here, it'll make people more prone to say, okay, which relationship will be the best for me? And when I'm saying the best, I'm not saying it sounds like I'm treating relationships in a very cold manner, and that's not it. Which will be the best for me emotionally, which will be the best person for me to be with, which will be the most practical person for me to be with, which will be the person that I'll feel most at home with, or that I'll love the most. And to be honest with you, that's how we should choose relationships. The idea that you stick in a relationship just because it's something you've known for a long time, or because it's something that the person you've been with you love this person once upon a time, and now you find yourself in a different frame of mind. That's sort of it's not healthy for fulfilling your desires. And one of the things you should do in life is fulfill your desires. So I'm not suggesting people traipse off to new horizons when they pop up. The Saturn aspect will make sure it's very practical. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people will feel like they're meeting people they're destined to meet when Venus is exactly opposite Saturn. They'll feel like kind of a contractual bond with them. Aren't I romantic? And this will be true of business partnerships. This will introduce new business partnerships, and you'll see a lot. So these aspects are really important. When we get to around 2 weeks from now, 2 important things are going to happen. Number one, Mars and Venus will probably, so this will be around July 17th, and we'll talk about this more in focus next week. Mars and Venus will likely be in Leo together. They'll be aspected by Jupiter. Jupiter's aspect will bring a lot of relationship opportunities in. They'll bring a lot of business opportunities in. As Venus goes through this sign, it'll feel more proud and more independent than normal. And so you'll see a lot of changes. For certain signs, it's not going to change their relationship status. Some people are either intensely loyal, or they'll have more. They'll be less inclined to take a chance. Also something interesting will happen when Jupiter and Venus hit in a sign. People will become a little bit more materialistic. They'll start to focus on financial gains. You'll start to see the economy heat up quite a bit more. But also, one thing we're going to have to watch out for is one of the things that caused the spread of the coronavirus last year wasn't the planet you normally associate with it, which is Ketu. It was really Jupiter aspecting Mars. So we're going to have to be very careful about outbreaks, especially in other countries and in certain parts of the United States. because if there's one thing, but again, there are cures, there are better remedies than existed at that time. So I'm not really that worried about it, but I do think you'll see some spikes in COVID-19 infections. But again, will it be as bad as it was before? I seriously doubt it. The other thing is, so some countries that are currently suffering will still be suffering a little bit, but that'll start to remediate, I still think, around September. So July, the United States, June, July, as I said before, the United States will be largely out of this kind of panic mode about COVID. And you're starting to see vaccinations take place around the world. And despite what some people say about the vaccinations, I think this has been kind of a blessing. The other thing is, again, we have a Saturn-Mars aspect. Some people are going to like the vaccinations because there are risks involved with the vaccinations. There are risks involved with every aspect of life. I'm not downplaying what they're saying. I'm just saying that's really what the truth is. So, and there are risks to shutting down the economy, which we're experiencing right now. These things are, but did we have a choice in terms of shutting down the economy? I'll let wiser people answer that question than me. The other thing is, the moon right now is in Aries. It's an action starting moon. The Lord is in Cancer, so it's debilitated. And that will make people feel like they want to start action, but they're a little bit hesitant to do so. Within about 2 weeks, you'll start to see people going. I've seen more people out going to restaurants. And within about 2 weeks, you'll see a lot of people around the world starting to socialize more, starting to feel more confident, starting to feel more optimistic. And this nakshatra right here, Maga Nakshatra, is Nakshatra of the King. Purva Falguni, the next nakshatra, which is around 3 weeks away for Mars and Venus, is a really prosperous nakshatra. And so is Uttara Falguni, which lies in Leo and goes into Virgo. So these are really, really good signs that you'll see enhanced economic growth and more money coming out. Now, let's look to the world chart. So are we seeing any potential for wars? I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because Jupiter-Mars aspect will increase aggression. That's true. But Jupiter's in kind of a peaceful nakshatra, or kind of a peaceful sign. And it'll be more interested in inventions. You'll see a lot more medical inventions popping up over the next year or so. You'll also see a lot more like brand new concepts coming through in science, and they won't be accepted right away because we're still dealing with institutional changes. But I think a lot more people, at least from this rising sign, a lot more people are interested in traveling. A lot more people are interested in feeling and enjoying themselves, although they're still a little bit afraid of that because of that debilitated Mars. And a lot more people are interested in seeing things. There is a little bit of fear still being perpetuated by the governments because of the sun being in Mercury sign, and Mercury's with Rahu, but within about 4 days, Mercury will be in the same sign as the sun. You'll see less anxiety, less tension. So I think that'll be a good thing. All right, so these are aspects. Sun is aspecting the first house. That makes us optimistic. Saturn is aspecting Venus and Mars, so it's making us interested in relationships and breaking through in relationships, and that'll probably come true over the next 2 weeks or so. And also Jupiter's aspecting the sun right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Virgo right now. So this gives governments and religious leaders a lot of power when Jupiter aspects the sun. When Jupiter moves into Cancer in about 2 weeks, let's see what the 17th looks like. Let's look at this for a second. So Mars will still be there. Mars will be moving around the 21st. So, okay. So my apologies to folks, but let me just. Jupiter will still be in Aquarius. All right. So Mars will move in around the 20th of July into Leo, and we'll all breathe a big sigh of relief because we'll finally be able to do things we want to do. There won't be so much fear in the world. So that's a good thing. And I don't like fear in general as an emotion. I think it's a counterproductive emotion. There are times when it's very self-preservative, and I appreciate that, but I don't like panic either. And the Mercury Rahu combination is panicky. So it doesn't mean everybody feels that way, obviously, but I think our media resources tend to thrive on fear and panic. And I just think it's disappointing. And I came to this conclusion not just recently, I came to this conclusion in the 1980s. It's just every night watching the news was depressing, and I can take bad news, but some of the bad news was essentially, when you looked at it more carefully, it was conflated. It was excessive. Maybe it's a word I can put on it. And it normally doesn't affect most people's lives. That's another thing I tend to look at. So you'll have these weird little incidents, like we had an incident, and I live in Massachusetts, and I saw some negative things in last week's forecast in Massachusetts, and there was apparently some kind of a standoff with some paramilitary people, or a group of people in Wakefield, Mass, which is just north of Boston. And about 2 days ago, there was an undetonated explosive device found on the porch of a place around 5 city blocks from where I am right now. So it's been interesting. So these lines don't lie. So let's look at the map. By the way, if you like what I'm doing, and you can also give me suggestions to do other things. If you like what I'm doing, and you're finding these videos useful, please hit the bell, subscribe, send me a like. I can even have disagreements. I disagree with somebody about using the outer planets last week, and I can certainly understand the individual's point. I explain my point as to why I didn't use them. So it's, if we can have a reasonable exchange, that's fine with me. All right, so we have, and I am still doing broadcasts with Lolita Donatella, Rebecca, and we hope to be putting those out every single week. And as I said, as time permits, I'll be putting out, and time should permit, I'll be putting out smaller broadcasts on important planetary events. I am going to be teaching a course on Gemini astrology through Kepler College, which is a very interesting system of astrology, and also on the annual solar return chart at Kepler College. But I'm also moving towards organizing my own school, and I take individual students as well, and I do individual readings. So if you want to contact me about something like that, the best place to get me is on my cell phone, 508-525-0001. You can text me, or you can call me directly, or you can send me an email at neivas@comcast.net, crystalexpectations@comcast.net, or GaryGomesG@gmail.com. And I work very closely with students when I have them. I work very closely with you when I get your chart. You can ask me questions for up to 3 months after the chart is done. So I do pay special attention to my clients. So you can call me for more information about that, or just contact me. And I have several articles online. You can look up those to see if you like the way I think. But it's a free country. It's a free exchange of ideas. So I'll be honest with you, whether or not you think, whether or not I think you would like my style, or whether or not you'd be better off consulting another astrologer for either readings or teaching. But I think, at least from this chart, and I'm not being falsely humble here, at least I have a very good accuracy rate, and I know what I know what I'm doing. I know what's essential. I know what's not essential. So that having been said, let's move over to what we normally do, and we look at problem points based on the astrocartography line. So we have had some minor activity in California on the West Coast, heat waves, some, I believe, some earth tremors in Northern California, if I recall correctly. And that's because we have a Rahu line running through that part of the state. That's not going to abate for a little while. Also, it'll be interesting to see what the recall happens in California, Governor Newsom, because we have a Rahu line running right through there. That usually does indicate an upset of some kind, but we'll see what happens. We have, so that could indicate an overthrow, quote unquote, of the governor. But we'll see what happens. Rahu is also like wildly erratic, and since Horus, which makes us more inclined to say, to maintain some loyalty or some perseverance, but I don't know. It's just, if anything saves them, it would be the Saturn retrograde. That'll be really the only thing that does save them, at least from what I can see from the chart. Mars and Venus and Saturn are really close to each other in southern Alaska. That could bring some bad weather activity, like earthquakes, and not necessarily volcanoes, but earthquakes. And Sun is passing over far eastern Russia and the Aleutian Islands, so that could indicate some governmental activity out there, probably from Russia. There's So we have that Rahu line. That Rahu line is very important to me, especially this month. And the other line we have, the ascending line we have right here, is looks like a Mercury line. So we'll be having a lot of attention focused on Louisiana, looks like, all the way up through Indiana, Michigan, and Canada over here. This line, so this is a Mercury line. This line right here, I need to trace it. Give me a second. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so this is interesting, and it looks like a sun line. All right, so that indicates a lot of governmental activity in Western Texas. And it's interesting we don't have any lines happening around Florida where that building collapsed, but I think last week I did see something down there. The other line which is coming through is we're going to see more governmental activity in South America. So more, I would say more repressive governmental activity, especially in the north of South America through Brazil, through Argentina, and possibly even Paraguay and Uruguay. A lot of the unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be exposed to, I would say, some brutality on the part of the government because of the Saturn-Venus conjunction. Excuse me. And I should turn that off. I should turn these off. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can turn them off. And also, we have a Mercury line running through Western Africa and Iceland. So this could mean some panicky news coming from Iceland or from Western Africa. The sun line is focused all through Algeria. I believe that's Algeria. I hope I'm not making a fool of myself, but that would be nothing new. And all the way from Norway, all through Germany, France, Belgium, the Netherlands. So there may be some more governmental control, maybe some governmental shutdowns there. Mercury's running through, the moon line is running through Western Europe, or Eastern Europe, excuse me, and Norway. So that indicates, at least from what I can see from the chart, more social activity going on and more social activity starting to happen in Italy, Greece, Northern Africa, and Egypt. There's a Venus line. So we have a moon, Mercury moon, Mercury, moon Venus line essentially surrounding Turkey. So Turkey looks like it's in fairly good shape, except for the western part of the country, which to me indicates some conflict, some military conflict, also in Syria, and also, interestingly enough, in the Arab Republic and down into Sudan. The other countries, Mercury is running through Moscow, so again, some Mercury Rahu is running through Moscow and Eastern Europe, so again, some concerns about earthquakes. Eastern Europe, some people told me, an individual told me there's a lot of earthquake activity in Eastern Europe over the past few months. And there's been a lot of earthquake activity in Turkey over the past couple of years. So that's not surprising geographically, although I don't know that much about earthquakes per se. Geographically, they're sort of in the same region, like right here. And this is along the line in Turkey, which is a major fault line. So that's something to watch out for, but it's not going to happen this month. If any activity happens, it'll happen in Western Turkey, and it'll be war connected, I think. Although the Saturn Mars can give some potential for earthquakes, but it'll be in the western part of the country. Jupiter is passing through uh, Iran and close to Pakistan, and Mercury's going directly through Pakistan. Nothing is going through India right now, which is interesting. Although this, to me, this combination of Sun and Mercury does indicate some panic connected with Pakistan, and maybe increased governmental control happening in India. So essentially the government perhaps shutting down more, especially in Bengal. And over here we have a Moon-Mars line in China. So I would expect some more disease outbreaks over here, and also some more oppressive action to happen over here. The Venus line is running through this, so China will be interested in getting its commercial activity going and getting more of a public image going. They just recently announced they want to be the first people on Mars. Venus is running through Australia, and there's a Saturn line running through Australia. I don't know if you remember, but last week I said Australia was experiencing some pretty negative lines, and part of the country is in shutdown right now, especially this part over here. And that looks like that'll continue for a little while. And we have a Rahu line spreading panic through eastern Australia. And interesting enough, we have a Rahu-Jupiter combination, which indicates they'll overcome that fear relatively soon. So if I'm looking at the chart, probably the most difficult places are here, California, South America, and Eastern Europe, Eastern Turkey, and I would say Eastern China in the Philippines, and possibly Australia. Japan doesn't look too bad. It's got a good Jupiter line running through it, so it looks like it's in good shape. Now let's get back to the forecast for the week. For Aries, a lot of focus on home life. There's an exchange of lords between the first house and the fourth house. That's what's called the cancellation of a Nietzsche planet. So Mars becomes less problematic when the moon is in the sign, but it's only going to stay there for about another 2 days or so. But a lot more money coming in. To Aries, a lot of ambition, some anger on the home front, and some relationship problems, but also overall, so more of a tendency to fight. Career life looks very good as it has for this chart, for this sign over the past few months. For Taurus, again, some distance or detachment from relationships. Money like a strong desire to break free of constraints right now for this sign, do something different, do something new. But that'll be black for at least another couple of weeks. But you'll also see the sign will have good luck, good spiritual activity, but also good luck. For Gemini, Gemini's has the sun in the first house, the Lord of the first house in the 12th house. Mars is in the second house of Venus, so it's a good combination for financial success. The sun's hemmed in by benefics, by the way, let's call it, so that's considered to be pretty good. And overall, right now, Geminis will have some arguments, but a relatively better month than they have had, although they will still seem a little bit sad or a little bit depressed. Things aren't going as quickly as they'd like them to go. And Jupiter aspects the sun in the chart, that's very good. So that's really a nice combination in the chart for financial success. Moon is in the 11th house of gains, so it looks like it will do pretty well financially. For Cancer, Cancers have been facing a heap of frustration, whether it's Cancer Sun in Vedic astrology, Cancer Moon, or Cancer rising sign. Now, again, Indian astrology uses a sidereal zodiac. So if you're born after the 15th of July through August 15th, that's Cancer Sun. So this has had a lot of frustration in relationship life, kind of feeling tied or limited in relationship matters, and kind of expecting a surprise, almost anxious for a surprise over the next few months. And they'll get it. They'll get the reward they're looking for, but within a couple of weeks. The other thing, at least relationship-wise and also financially, at least in terms of relationships, they'll have more stable people interested in them. They'll have Jupiter's in the 8th house, will give them more financial windfalls or unexpected breaks. And Moon is in the 9th house, so change of luck is indicated for this sign this week. The Sun rules Leo. The Sun's in the 11th house of gains. That's really good for Leos. That's August 15th to September 15th. And there are no planets in the 2nd house, no significant planets in it, but there is a strong desire for wealth. And again, they'll have to look out for stomach issues, but good opportunities for relationship life for this sign. But they'll have some hesitancy or some caution. And also for Leos, the Moon is very well placed in the 9th house here. It'll give them a lot of financial luck and a lot of financial improvement. Although career life, they'll want more recognition and they'll want more financial growth. For Virgos, they'll have to watch out for being taken advantage of in relationships. So that's going back to Leo. For Virgos, you have no planets in the 7th, although the 7th Lord is in the 6th. So that means some difficulty or some arguments. Relationship partners will seem to be a little bit difficult to deal with. Saturn's in the 5th. They'll enjoy studying or being alone or being a little bit isolated. Mars and Venus are in the 11th. They'll have good friends who will actually support them. Sun's in the 10th house, good for career gains, and Mercury's in the 9th house, good for career, good for luck, overall luck. Rahu will obstruct that just a little bit, and it'll make them panicky, a little panicky, but basically it's a good conjunction or a good combination. Moon is in the 8th house, so they'll be very interested in occult or metaphysical subjects this month or this week. Libra, Moon, change of relationship partners, change or desire for change of relationship partners, very strong. As a matter of fact, they'll have a couple of people interested in them. Kate, who's in the 2nd house, difficult to understand, but also usually they'll become very focused on financial success. Saturn's in the 4th house. Home responsibilities will seem onerous. And Mars, there'll be some fights or arguments about home responsibilities. But Jupiter, their luck in love affairs will be good. Their luck in learning about occult or metaphysical subjects will be good. And overall, they'll have good financial gains this month. Scorpio has Mercury in the 7th house, so it'll be interesting in changing relationship partners or modifying the agreement with relationship partners. This can be business as well. Jupiter's in the 3rd house, so there'll be a strong desire for travel. And Moon in the 5th, a lot of focus on romantic involvements. As in the case with Libra, a lot of focus on relationship, but relationship prospects will be more aggressive. They'll have to watch out for their nerves. So this month, Sagittarius feel a little bit um, panicky because of Saturn in the second and K2 in the 12th. Mars and Venus are in the 8th house, so I'll have to watch out for aggressive relationship partners or relationship partners who want to take advantage of them. Career life, though, looks relatively unstable until around 3 days from now. Capricorn has Saturn in the first house, so it's in a good power position. Jupiter's in the second house, so it's good for financial success and financial growth. Moon is in the 4th house, so this indicates a change of residence for Capricorns, or and Mars and Venus is in the 7th house, so make them subject to arguments and problems with relationship partners. So not many signs escape relationship problems. This sign should be careful though about affairs, because or about romances, because basically the people you'll be attracted to will not be quite what they seem. That's just a cautionary note. And they'll also tell on you. They'll also lie to you, deceive you. Sun's in the 6th house, so I'll have to be careful of their health and keep their energy up. And K2's in the 11th house, so friends will be a little bit fickle or unreliable, but there'll basically be a lot of focus in the sign on trying to get financial security and financial stability. For Aquarius, Jupiter's in the 1st house. It's a good placement. It ties together a lot of good things for the sign, and there'll be a lot of focus on the sign for commercial success. Moon is in the 3rd house, so again, desire for travel shows up, although it'll flip back and forth. And Mercury's in the 4th house with Rahu, so kind of dissatisfied with domestic living arrangements. Sun is in the 5th house, a lot of focus on children, a lot of focus on love affairs. These will be less damaging to this sign than they would be for Capricorn, but I still advise against getting too serious about somebody too quickly. Mercury still influences this house, and Mars and Venus do tend to cause some digestive issues, some health issues, especially connected with urination and elimination. And lastly, K2's in the 10th house, so not a lot of career recognition, not just yet, but as long as the sign remains focused, it will succeed. Saturn's in the 12th house, so a lot of expenses. Finally, Pisces has no planets in the 1st house. It's surrounded by 2 benefics, roughly benefic, Moon and Jupiter. Moon's waning, so it's not quite benefic, but there'll be a lot of focus on writing, a lot of focus on communicating. Mercury's in the 3rd house with Rahu, a lot of desire to see exotic places. Sun's in the 4th house, so a lot of conflict at home. Mars and Venus in the 5th house, some relationship potential there, but again, not really the best time to enter into a relationship, at least for another week or so. And 7th house Lord is Mercury. Mercury's in the 3rd with Rahu, so again, just wait a few days before you start looking at anybody really seriously. And some unexpected wealth from the sign. Saturn's in the 11th house, aspecting the 1st house. So this sign will feel a lot of pressure, but there'll be a very strong spiritual tendency for this chart. That's about it for this week. Again, like, subscribe, share, and I'll be back. There's some exciting things coming up. I know I say that a lot, but this is true this time. And we'll talk to you next week, or earlier, if at all possible. Thank you and namaste.